Now that we have all 20 of our motifs crocheted and ready to go, before we start joining them together, I wanted to show you the schematic so you could understand how we are joining them together. Because at this point, we also need to figure out where each color combination is going to go. You don't want too many of the same combination next to each other if we're going to have all of these different combinations. We want to kind of spread all of those around, as well as spreading around the different motifs as well. So this is the schematic, and this shows the front. So whatever you see here is actually on the back side as well. And everywhere you see a dotted line, that is a motif that is folded in half. And then where you see the solid lines, that is a motif facing forward, which means there's also a duplicate for the other side. So let me show you what I mean by all that. So let's start at the bottom edge here, and we're going to need 2 motifs that are folded in half on the diagonal for the bottom edge of the bag. So I'll pick 2 motifs just like that. So now we've got 2 motifs folded diagonally on the sides and 1 in the center, which really means it's 2 in the center, 1 for the front and the back. So we'll start with 1 motif for the back, 1 for the front, and then we'll fold 1 in half for that side, and we can fold 1 in half for the other side as well. Let's pick a different color combo. There we go. Okay, so there we have the bottom, the second round. So we have the bottom of the bag and then the first band of motifs. Here, let's look at our chart. In fact, I'm gonna lift the chart up so we can bring it back and forth. Okay, so now for the next round, we've got the next band of motifs. We've got 2 facing forward, which means we'll have 2 facing backwards as well. So I think what I'm going to do is try to match the colors from front to back here. I suppose it doesn't really matter. Just want to make sure I don't have anything. They're all going to be combined. We're going to do the joining round in the Mykonos blue, but I still thought it would be fun to get all of these colors. Oh yeah, that's green on green. So let's pick blue or purple. There we go. Okay, so now we'll come forward again. And the next round has 2 folded motifs and then 1 facing forward, 1 facing back. So we'll do a fold here and a fold here. And then we can do a facing forward and a facing back here. And then we have 4 more motifs. The last band at the top here is 2 facing forward, which means there'll also be 2 facing backward. And we can do that here and here. So at this point we have our position for all the motifs. So all we have to do now is keep them in this position as we start joining them together. Or you could, I guess you could clip them with stitch markers or safety pins, but I'm just going to move everything off to the side and start with the motifs on the bottom. And then just to keep my color reference here, I'll leave them in those positions until I pick them up to join them. The final joining round is worked the same on all 4 of the motifs, motifs A, B, and C, A, B, C, and D, because the previous round that we did on all of the motifs is also identical. So the joining round, which on the first one won't be joined, but everything thereafter will be, starts with a slip stitch into the first, any chain 5 space along the side of any motif. Just, you want to do it in the side, not the corner. Chain 1 and single crochet into that same space, chain 5, skip 2 double crochets, single crochet in the next, chain 5, skip 2 double crochets in the next chain 5 space, work single crochet, chain 5, and single crochet, chain 5, skip 2 double crochets and single crochet in the next, chain 5, and skip 2 double crochets, single crochet in the next chain 5 space. So we're going to repeat this all the way around. From single crochet in the side, chain 5 space, chain 5, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next, chain 5, skip 2 doubles, single crochet, chain 5, single crochet in the next chain 5 space, chain 5, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next double crochet, chain 5, single crochet in the next chain 5 space. And you want to repeat that all the way around. End of the round, you want to slip stitch to the first single crochet at the beginning of the round to join. And that's what the final round looks like on our first motif that is not joined to another motif yet. Next, I'll show you how to join the second motif to the first one. And for these bottom 2 motifs here, they're only going to be joined in one corner. So let's get started on that second motif from the bottom edge. So we pulled these 2 from the bottom edge to match this. We did the one, so now we'll start the second one. And we're going to join it in the same way that we joined the last round on the first motif, which joining in any side chain 5 space with a slip stitch, chain 1 and single crochet in the same space, chain 5, skip 2 double crochets, single crochet in the next, chain 5, single crochet in the next chain 5 space. Now we're at a corner, so we can join to the corner on the first motif. So a chain 5 join is chain 2, slip stitch into that adjacent motif's chain 5 space. I prefer to work into the center chain of the chain 5, but you have the choice of working into the chain 5 space or the center chain, chain 2. So that chain 2 slip stitch, chain 2 counts as the equivalent of our chain 5. Then we come back to our established pattern and single crochet in the same chain 5 space, chain 5, and continue on in our established pattern for completing the final round on this motif. Okay, so the final round on the second motif, where it's joined only in the corner to the first motif, is how we're going to match up, fold those back in half again to match up to our schematic. And this is what your crochet should look like, and it should match the schematic at that point. So now what we're going to do is join this folded motif, the one in the front, and the folded motif along here. So this motif will be joined on 2 sides, one side to the back here, to the corner, and to the front here. Then this motif will be joined on 2 sides along the front here. This motif will be joined on 2 sides to the back here. And this motif folded will be joined to the front of this one, through the corner, and onto the back of that one. So let me show you how that actually works now with the yarn. So I'm going to move these back to their positions so that we don't lose our place. Okay, so we're going to have to unfold these, right, so this doesn't look like they're going to join side to side. We're going to be joining here and here for this corner one, all right? Because when that's folded together on the side here, and this is folded along the bottom here, they work to crochet along the back side and the front, and when they're folded, they fit together nicely. So a little bit of blind faith here and seeing that. So as we come along, we're going to join in this corner here first, along this side to this corner, then come back around and work along that side. And like I said, it doesn't look like it's going to work that way. It only makes sense when they're folded. So now that we've said all that, let's get started with the yarn so you can see what I mean. A little bit of blind faith in this type of a joining technique. So we'll leave this one folded for a second and we'll get started on the joining round on this motif. Slip stitch in the first chain 5 space, chain 1, single crochet in the same space, chain 5. We've already done this part before. You know how to do this round. Once we get to that corner, now we're going to be joining into this corner here. So it is a chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space, and I'm choosing to do it into that center chain. Whoops, I lost my yarn. So it was chain 2 here, slip stitch to join here, chain 2, single crochet back in our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, skip 2 double crochets, single crochet in the next double crochet on our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 space on our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, skip 2 double crochets, single crochet in the next double crochet on our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 corner, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif's corner, chain 2, single crochet in the same chain 5 space on our existing motif. Okay, so we've joined along one side, but now we need to, I'm going to pull my yarn now so we can try to get our bearings and see where we're at. Fold this one back in half to be the second half of the base. Now we're going to, if we fold this one in half, we can see where we have to join next. So we're going to be joining along that next side of that same adjacent motif. So it's chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space, chain 2, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next double, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 space on our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next double on our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 corner on our working motif, chain 2, and slip stitch into the next chain 5 space in the next corner on our adjacent motif, chain 2, and single crochet in the same chain 5 space on our working motif. I'm going to let my yarn go again here for a second because I want you to see where we're at. Now if we put these back into their proper folded positions, you can see we do have that wall begun for the bag. And now we'll just work in our established pattern to finish up this round with no more joining, just working that last final round in pattern. And once you slip stitch to the first stitch at the beginning of the round, we will fasten off this motif as well. And we'll put it back in our folded position so we can see where we're at with the schematic. So our next motif we want to join is here in the middle. And that means we're instead of joining along two sides of the same motif, which we do when we're doing the folded joins, when we're joining in the middle here, when we're joining two sides, we're joining on two separate adjacent motifs. See the difference? When we're folding it in half, we're working along two sides of the same motif, and when we work it flat like here, we're working along two sides of adjacent motifs, two separate motifs. So let's turn it upside down. Actually, even I'm going to turn both upside down because that's the way we'll be crocheting it. So we're joining this motif now. So we'll get the motif started in pattern. Work our way over to the first corner, and now we're ready to join. So we'll be joining from this corner here, across this edge to this corner, across this edge and to this corner, and then we'll work the rest of the motif not joining any sides. So the first corner begins with a chain 2, slip stitch to the adjacent motif's chain 5 space, chain 2, and single crochet in the same chain 5 space, that's our corner, chain 2, slip stitch in the next chain 5 space, chain 2, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next, chain 2, slip stitch in the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 space on our existing motif, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next double on our working motif, chain 2, slip stitch in the next chain 5 space on the adjacent motif, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 space on our working motif, chain 2. Then here's where we're joining into 2 motifs that were already joined together in the same corner. And this is the reason why I like to join in the 3rd chain of the chain 5 space, or the center one, because then when we join multiple motifs in the same space, we get a tighter join. So you can see where they're already joined together here. So I'm going to slip stitch into that same chain for my join. Whoops. Chain 2, and come back and single crochet in my same motif. Now we're ready. Now we've joined along the one side of this motif, but now remember I said we join along this when we're doing a 2-sided join. When the motif is flat, that first side is joined to one motif and the second side is joined to a different motif. So this is that example here. We've worked across this side. Now we're doing a 2-sided join for our working motif, but that second side is now going to be joined to this motif. So we'll chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space of the next adjacent motif, chain 2, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next, chain 2, slip stitch into the next adjacent motif, chain 5 space, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 space, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space, chain 2, skip 2 doubles, single crochet in the next, chain 2, slip stitch into the next chain 5 space, chain 2, single crochet in the next chain 5 space, chain 2. Now we've come to another chain 5 space where it's already been joined into another one, so I pay attention to which chain they were both joined into, and I slip stitch into that same chain to give a nice tight join. And now you can see we're joined on 2 sides of this motif, so the rest of this round is now going to be worked without joining it to another motif. At the end of the round, slip stitch to the first single crochet at the beginning of the round to join, and fasten off. And now we'll set our work down again so you can see what our work looks like. Turn this back right side around, and you can see we have our 2 folded motifs from the first band, and then we have the first folded motif here joined on 2 sides, and then we have the first flat motif here joined on 2 sides. So for the rest of this round, we're going to repeat this and this one more time. We're going to repeat the folded one on this side here, and then we'll repeat a flat one on this side here. Okay, so we did the first 2 motifs folded together. We did the second band of motifs with 2 folded on the sides and 2 flat in the middle, and the 2 folded on the side were joined to the same motif on 2 sides, and the ones in the center that are flat are joined on 2 sides to 2 different adjacent motifs. So we've done both bands, the bottom and the first band of motifs. So now the next band of motifs here is just flat motifs. There are no folded motifs on this band. So we'll go back to our lined up motifs that we did in the beginning of the video. And so these are our two next sections where we have ones for the front and ones for the back. And so for this section, in the technique that I've already showed you, we're going to join each of these motifs on two sides to two separate adjacent motifs. And this is going to happen by turning this around so that we can work them as we go here. So they'll be right side facing for these two motifs. And then once we join those, we'll flip the whole thing over and join the next two. Okay, so here's what it looks like after we've joined the two flat motifs here to our bag on two sides of two separate adjacent motifs. And then when you're ready to do this for the opposite side of the bag, because every time you see a flat square motif, you have to remember that there's an opposite one for the other side of the bag. We're going to flip the bag over and do the same thing on this side with two more motifs. Only to join them, we actually turn the bag upside down so that we can work those two sides here and here, and then these two side joins here and here. Okay, our third band of motifs is joined on both sides of our bag. And now we'll come back to the schematic to figure out what we're going to do for the next band of motifs. We're going to have a folded motif on the side, which means it's joined to one side of a motif on the front and one side of a motif on the back. Then we'll have a square motif, which means it's joined to two separate motifs on the front, and then a second one will be joined to two motifs that are adjacent on the back. And then the next folded motif will be joined to one side of a motif on the front and one side of a motif on the back. So now we'll come back to our motifs that we had already lined up in the correct motif placement and color placement. And so we have two folded ones and two flat ones. We'll grab one of those folded ones, and I'm going to show you that the folded one now is going to be joined along this side of this motif along the back for this side, and then this side is going to be joined along this side of this motif on the front, and the same will be done with this motif on this side. This side will be joined to that edge along this motif on the back, and this side will be joined to this motif along the front. And then for the two center motifs, the one on the front will be joined along this side and this side of the front. And then when we flip it over, this motif will be joined along this side and this side of the back. So we'll take our bag and turn it upside down, and you can turn your schematic upside down too if that helps. It might also help to check these off once you've done the motif so that you remember where you're at. But anyway, we're at this section here. So for this motif, this folded motif on this side, we're going to join it along here. And I've got it set up to begin the corner. So we're going to open up that edge. This is the back, this is the front, and we're going to join along those two sides of these two motifs, one half across the back and one half across the front, and work in our established pattern. Okay, so we worked along the back side, and imagine if this was folded again now. When it's folded, that really is how it's obvious where you're going to go next. Now we're going to work across this side of the adjacent front motif. Okay, so we'll fold that in half again so you can see that the first half of the motif was joined along the adjacent edge of a back motif, and then as we come around, we worked the second side of the join along the adjacent motif on the front of the work. And you're going to repeat that for both sides of this folded motif on the edge. And then we'll join these two flat motifs along two sides of two adjacent motifs on the front, and then this one same way on the back, same as we did these motifs down here. Okay, we're in the home stretch of joining the bag now. So if we refer back to the schematic, we've got all of these motifs combined except for the final four, which is two flat motifs joined on two sides on the front, and then the same for the back. So I'll show you where we're going to place those now. So we'll join these two motifs for the front along this side here, and then this one joined from here to here, and then we'll flip the bag over and do the same thing for the back. And this is the same technique as I showed you with these motifs down here in the second band of motifs. Once you finish joining all of the motifs per the schematic, go ahead and weave in all your loose ends with a yarn needle and scissors. Next, I'll show you how we do the top band and create the straps to finish up this beautiful crochet bag. Okay, to begin the top border for the bag, we're going to join in any one of the four corner stitches at the top points of the bag, and you want to tie your yarn to your crochet hook and slip stitch to join in any of those top pointing corner chain 5 spaces. Chain 3, which counts as a double crochet. Double crochet is yarn over your hook, insert your hook in the space, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2. So we've done chain 3 that counts as a double and a double crochet, chain 3, and 2 more double crochets in that same space. Then in the next chain 5 space, work 3 double crochets. In the next double crochet, or in the next chain 5 space, 3 double crochets. And you're going to repeat this across until we get to the lowest corner between the two motifs. Okay, and so we've got this area here where we joined motifs. We're just going to skip that completely and go to the next chain 5 space on the next motif and work 3 double crochets. And work 3 double crochets in each chain 5 space until we get to the next top chain 5 corner or point. Okay, so we're up to the next point here, so we're going to work 2 double crochet, chain 3, 2 double crochet in that chain 5 space. And then we will repeat this all the way around. At the end of the round, you want to slip stitch to the top of the chain 3 at the beginning of the round to join. And fasten off. And this is what that top edge should look like when you're finished. Next, I'll show you how we do the strap. So we're going to join in 1 chain 3 space here on the front, make a chain and join to this chain 3 space to do the first strap, and then we'll do the same thing for the 2 back straps as well. And because we have this dip here in the top of the bag, we don't need to make the top, we don't need to make the strap as long as a traditional strap, because we're going to get the bag drop, or the distance from the top of the bag to the handle. It'll be much larger because of the space for fitting your arm in there. So let's grab our yarn and tie it to our crochet hook. And to make the 2 straps, the first strap is worked from front point to front point, and the back strap is worked from one back point to a second back point. We're not working right to right, left to left. We're working front to front and then back to back. So you'll join with a slip stitch into the first front chain 3 space, and then chain 40, and then slip stitch to the next chain 3 space on the front. Okay, so there's our strap, the beginning of our strap. We're now going to turn the work and work 1 single crochet into each chain across. So insert your crochet hook, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, and work 1 single crochet in each chain across. Then you want to slip stitch into that first chain 3 space again, and work 1 single crochet into each single crochet all the way across. Slip stitch into the chain 3 space and turn your work, and now slip stitch in each stitch across. Then slip stitch into the chain 3 space once more, cut your yarn and fasten off. And so the strap for the front is finished, and you want to repeat that entire process for the back strap as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions at all, please feel welcome to leave them for me in the comments. And if you check out the video description, I've provided links for everything we talked about in this video. Let us make time to create, share, and inspire today and every day. I'll see you in the next video.